In the next few videos, we are going to be going through setting up some basic uh, face controls. Um, and mainly, we're going to keep it pretty simple and focus on the eye controls and the jaw controls. Um, so it's the base layer of what you would need for a face setup. Obviously, you could take that further with full eyelid control and controls for different phonemes and face expressions and all that sort of stuff. But um, that stuff you can explore personally if you want to take it further. I can definitely give you some suggestions as to resources. Um, but again, if you take what we've learned so far and apply it, you could probably use some of these techniques to take it further and explore some of those ideas yourself as well. So first thing we'll tackle here is the jaw. So we're going to use joints for pretty much the core of everything that we're going to do right now. So if we want the jawbone to swing down and be able to open the character's mouth, then we're obviously going to need a joint to support that. So I've just got the head, neck, and joints and geometry visible right now because that's pretty much all going to be self-contained to those joints and these pieces of the character. So I'm going to go to the side view and I'm going to jump into my rigging menu set, go to skeleton, create joints, and I'm going to create a jawbone pretty much from here to here. So I'm going to start here, finish it at the chin, and maybe I'm going to move this down a little bit. Just going to try it there. Now, ultimately, this needs to follow along with the head joint, so I'm going to parent my jaw joint to the head. If you want to, we should also match the orientations up at this point, which makes sense to do it sooner rather than later. So I'm going to go into my orientation commands or tool, turn on the local axis visibility, because we want to match them up like usual. So X is primary, this is correct. And for this character, you can see Z is currently facing left and right, and Y is facing, in this case, forward. So the Z is the axis that needs to be flipped. So I'm going to go in and change the secondary axis to X, Z, and then I want Z to face to the positive X direction. So it's going to be X, Z, X plus as far as the orientation goes. And I'll hit apply. Oh, it has 0 rotation, so I got to freeze my joints first, which I forgot to do because I did rotate them after I positioned them. So if you rotate the joints so that they're not currently zeros, to adjust your position, don't forget to freeze it, otherwise the mirror tool will not work. And if that is effectively the same orientation as what we've got above, or for the rest of the head anyway. As usual, I'll also orient the end joint, even though it doesn't really matter. I like to be clean. So I'm just going to set that orient joint to world. That's the same as setting it, as I've mentioned in the past, it's the same as setting the orientation values to 0 in the joint tools settings, transform settings directly. You can also do the same thing by orienting it to the world, which will essentially orient it to its parent when it's all said and done. So now that the joints are oriented, I will parent this. I'm going to hide the head geometry for the time being. We don't really need that for setting up the joint system, and then the head is just going to get in the way, to be honest with you. So I'm just going to select pieces, hit Control H to hide. Oops. Looks like I missed something there. Got it all this time. There we go. And so now what I want to do is parent the jaw to the head with the P key. So now if I move the head, the jaw comes along for the ride, and I've got the ability to select and rotate the jaw directly. So I'm just going to label those. So I've got the jaw joint and the jaw end. Jaw joint end. Okay, so that gives us the base underlying structure, and now we need to give it control. As you can see, the setup is pretty much the same as all the rest of the other parts of the head. There's a few ways we could set this up. We could use Node Editor to create a connection between a controller and the joint so that the rotations match up. We could use we could use IK, to be honest with you. If we create an IK chain from here to here, and then parent the IK to a controller, that would give us jaw control by translation. Or we could use the tried and true method that we've used for the head and neck and create a shape and then parent the transform node, or sorry, the shape node for the control object to the transform node of the joint using parent-r-s, which we've done before. So first things first, I'm going to create a controller, and I will bring Batman's face back for that, because I want to see where it lines up. And I'm just going to use a basic circle. You don't have to get fancy. If you want to get fancy with your curves, by all means, you can. I'm going to keep it simple right now. So I'm just creating a NURB circle. I'm going to snap it to the jaw. And I'm actually going to even orient it to this end joint so that they have the same base orientation. So I'm going to parent it, zero the rotations out, and I'm going to rotate 90 degrees in Z so that it's pretty much lined up where I want it. I may have to adjust that later. I'm just going to have a look at the mesh. So I just want to make sure that this control is easy to select. Just moving an object space just to move it out. And I'm pretty happy with that for now. So what I'm going to do is set this up so that it has the shared orientation with the jaw joint. So again, exactly the same thing we did for the head and neck, really. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to parent it temporarily to the jaw joint. I'm going to freeze transformations while it's parented. Just realize my freeze transformations is not the default, so I actually accidentally only froze rotations. I didn't freeze the scale and translate, which I do want to do. So I'm going to reset this back to default settings. So I'm going to freeze transform all 3, transform, rotate, and scale. There we go. So now it's all set up in relationship to the joint. Now I'm going to unparent it, because again, the only reason I did that was to create the offset, the correct offset from the joint, so that when I parent it with parent-s-r, it doesn't move out of the way on me and can get lost in the ether because I didn't create the offset first. So I'm going to unparent it. That shows the offset to this joint. That's what these values are. And it's exactly what we need to parent this correctly. So I'm going to select the control, hit the down arrow to grab the control's shape node, as we've done a billion times. At least it feels like it. And with the shape node selected, I'm going to shift click the joint, the jaw joint, and I'm going to parent -s-r. And if all is correct, you should now be able to select that controller and use it to rotate, to select and rotate the jaw, which is exactly what we wanted. So that is working exactly as it should. And you can see it's already inherited the name because they're both stored under the same shape node now, or sorry, the same transform node. And that's where it gets its main name as far as the transformations go. So we're all pretty much good to go. So the only thing to do at this point will be the skinning, which we'll worry about later. If you've already got your character skinned, it should actually move at this point. Now, I did mention an alternative for the jaw. I'll save this as it is, and I'll show you the alternative. I'm fine with you using either or. I just wanted to show you another choice, because when it comes to skinning, there's not only one way to achieve the same end result or to solve the same problem. Depending on the needs of the production, depending on the desire of the animator, depending on technical limitations. I mean, there's so many things that can factor into the decisions that you make. I'm just going to call this one jaw rig FK. In the end, neither option is right or wrong, but yeah, they may have advantages or disadvantages as they apply to your project. But you have multiple options. So this is an FK solution. FK is 100% rotation based as far as the control goes. So I'm going to just break that connection. I'm going to undo it. Actually, you know what? I don't really need to, but I will anyway, just for clarity. I don't want to cause any confusion. So here we are with the same setup, but it isn't connected yet. So the other alternative, or one of the other alternatives, I could spend an hour showing you different ways to wire up the jaw, but I'm just going to show you two simple ones based on tools that we've already used. I could use IK. And with IK, you're still driving rotation, but it's instead of rotating the controller to do it, you would be translating the controller or moving it. But setting it up is very easy. I would just have to go into my skeleton, enable the IK handle tool, click on the jaw root, then click on the jaw end, and that will create an IK handle. And you can see if I move the IK handle, the jaw will follow it. So really, if I parent the IK handle to my control, so all I've done, I'll just call this jaw underscore IK underscore CTL. So this is the jaw IK control now. And I'll freeze the transformations on that so that this is the 0 position. And now, if I want to move that jaw, all I have to do is move this joint. And I would do the similar thing to what I would do with the other parts of the rig. I would set limits on this, so because you can see if I get up here, it flips, but if your jaw is up here, there's massive problems with your animation, or poor Batman has just been destroyed by somebody. Because really the jaw should swing up to about here tops and then down depending on where the teeth clench. And you can see there's no flipping in that direction. So I would set limits so that I don't allow the animator to go in a direction that they're not supposed to, and so on and so forth, if I use this method. With this method, you can also kind of skew the jaw left and right very easily by swinging it. So you can kind of offset the teeth if you want to do a grinding motion or something like that really easily. You can do the same thing with rotations and FK, but it's just a different style of control. And yes, if you chose, you could do an IK-FK switch on your jaw. I don't think it's a common thing. It feels a little redundant, but it is possible. So if you wanted to have the best of both worlds, you could set it up that way. You could take the first method I showed you, set up this method, create a slave joint, and then swap the influence back and forth just like we did for the arms. So it is possible if you want. So that's just two options. I'll save this one out as well. So jaw IK. I am fine with either method as far as a submission goes for this assignment. Now in the next video, we're going to learn how to set up the eye following, and we're going to use a new constraint for that one we haven't used before, called the aim constraint. And you could also, to be honest with you, you could set this up with an aim constraint as well once you know how it works. So just keep that in mind, because pretty much an aim constraint forces an object to always look at another object. So no matter where each of those two objects are in the scene, the one that you define as the follower will always point towards the other object. So that's how we're going to set up the eyes, and we'll look at that in the next video.